I used to believe that walking away was the end, that once you chose yourself, closed the door, and cut contact, the story would finally be over. I thought distance meant freedom. Silence meant safety. I never imagined that leaving would be the moment the real battle began. He thought he understood his mind, but what he didn't know was that a resource existed that could help him rebuild his life. You will find it in the description and comments. At the time, I didn't know that choosing peace would make me a target. Going no contact felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. The chaos stopped. The arguments disappeared. My nervous system finally began to rest. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking on emotional landmines. I believed the worst was behind me. I was wrong. At first, the changes were subtle. Mutual friends became distant. Stories about me began circulating, distorted, incomplete, carefully framed. I was described as cold, unstable, selfish. Private conversations were suddenly public, but rewritten. Moments of self-protection were rebranded as cruelty. I didn't understand what was happening. I hadn't said anything. I hadn't attacked. I had simply left. Then came the messages, not directly to me, but around me. People asking strange questions, passive comments online, encounters that felt accidental but carried a familiar energy. And the most disturbing part was the tone, calm on the surface, but sharp beneath it. It wasn't rage. It was calculation. That's when I realized something terrifying. In a narcissistic dynamic, your exit is not neutral. It is an injury. To someone who needs control, admiration, and emotional dominance, your independence is not just a boundary. It is a threat. Leaving is not seen as self-respect. It is seen as betrayal. And when their access to you is cut off, some do not move on. They reposition. My reputation was questioned. My motives were rewritten. Situations were engineered to provoke a reaction from me, because if I reacted, it would prove their narrative. If I stayed silent, my silence would be used as confirmation of guilt. It was a psychological trap. Speak and be framed as unstable. Stay quiet and be framed as hiding something. I felt watched, studied, not in a dramatic way, but in a cold, persistent one. And I asked myself, why does my absence disturb them so much? Why does my peace provoke such hostility? The breaking point came when I was confronted with a version of myself I didn't recognize, a story built entirely on fragments of truth and carefully placed lies. It was about control, about reclaiming narrative, about punishing the one who dared to step outside the role they were assigned. That was when I began learning about narcissistic retaliation. The loss of control over you becomes an attack on their identity. The most painful realization wasn't that they wanted to hurt me. It was that they needed to. Because if I could leave and rebuild, it meant they were not as powerful as they believed. And that idea was intolerable. Rebuilding my life meant more than staying away. It meant staying anchored in my truth when others questioned it. It meant resisting the urge to defend myself to people who were committed to misunderstanding me. It meant choosing integrity over reaction, and it meant understanding that not every battle is meant to be fought. Some are meant to be survived. I documented everything. Not to obsess, but to protect my reality. I strengthened my boundaries. I learned to recognize bait. I stopped explaining my story to those who had already chosen a version of me that served their narrative. And slowly, the attacks lost their power. Not because they stopped immediately, but because I stopped being available to the game. I asked myself hard questions. Why did their opinions still shake me? Why did I feel responsible for correcting lies? Why did I equate being understood with being safe? And instead of judging myself, I chose clarity. Because when someone has tried to erase you emotionally, reclaiming your identity is an act of resistance. Today, I know this. Yes, narcissistic revenge can exist. Not always as direct confrontation, but as quiet sabotage, as narrative warfare, as attempts to rewrite who you are in the minds of others. But I also know something more powerful. Their need to control does not define my future. Distance protected my mind, boundaries protected my life, and self-trust protected my identity. At the end of his journey, he discovered guidance in a resource that helped him face anxiety and rebuild his life. You can access it too. The link is in the description and comments. Healing after narcissistic abuse is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about refusing to let someone else author your story. And when you stop engaging with the narrative designed to break you, something extraordinary happens. Their power over you disappears. True freedom begins in the mind and only then appears in life. If this story resonated with you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and continue this journey with us as we expose toxic minds and rebuild stronger ones together.